Welcome to This Week in Africa. This week the continent shook, and nowhere harder than Mali, where the most coordinated armed offensive since 2012 killed a defense minister, drove Russian mercenaries out of a symbolic northern city, and forced the world to ask whether Russia's Sahel strategy is collapsing. We also have a historic Pan-African IPO in the making, a plane crash in South Sudan, a death sentence in Uganda, and a continent-wide May Day message that cuts straight to the bone. Let's get into it. West Africa, Mali on the brink. We begin with the story that dominated the week and demands the most context. On the morning of Saturday, April 25th, at approximately 5:20 a.m., simultaneous explosions and heavy gunfire erupted near Kati, the main military base on the outskirts of Bamako, just kilometers from where Malian junta leader Assimi Goïta resides. Within minutes, coordinated attacks were reported in Gao, Sévaré, Mopti, and Kidal. This was not a skirmish. This was a nationally coordinated offensive. The attack was carried out jointly by two allied forces, JNIM, Jama'at Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, the al-Qaeda affiliate that has been the most dangerous jihadist force in the Sahel for nearly a decade, and the FLA, the Azawad Liberation Front, a Tuareg separatist group that has deep historical grievances against the Malian state. Together, they struck 5 cities in hours. The highest profile casualty, Mali's defense minister Sadio Kamara, killed when JNIM fighters drove a car bomb into his residence in Kati. He was not just a cabinet minister, he was the architect of Mali's partnership with Russian mercenaries, the man who had opened the door to what was then Wagner, now rebranded as Africa Corps. His death is not incidental, it is strategic. By the end of April 25th, Kidal, a city in the far north that Russia and the Malian army had fought to recapture from Tuareg rebels in 2023 at enormous cost, was fully under FLA control. Russian Africa Corps troops, after negotiating their exit through Algerian mediation, were escorted out of the city under FLA guard. They left behind drone stations and military equipment. They were outnumbered and did not hold the line. Russia has since insisted it is not leaving Mali. A Kremlin spokesperson confirmed this week that Africa Corps forces would remain and continue operations. But the facts on the ground tell a different story. Russian troops also withdrew from Aguelhok, Tessalit, and Ber, towns across the Kidal region, as well as Tessit in the Gao region. The intelligence failure was catastrophic. The regional governor in Kidal had warned Russia's Africa Corps 3 days before the attack. They did nothing. Here is the Pan-African reading of this moment. When France was expelled from Mali in 2021, the junta's message to its people was, "We are ending foreign dependency. We are reclaiming our sovereignty. We are choosing African solutions." But what replaced the French, Russia's Africa Corps, turned out to be a military partner that committed documented atrocities against Tuareg civilians, extracted gold from Malian mines as payment, and this week was evacuated from a city it had helped recapture just 2 years earlier, reportedly after negotiating a deal with the rebels. This is not a story about France versus Russia. This is a story about the Malian people, displaced from Kidal in their thousands, caught between jihadist violence, state abuse, and now the wreckage of a security bet that has failed. More than 2,000 Malian civilians were fleeing Kidal as of Thursday. The United Nations has warned of a humanitarian emergency. The Sahel is not a proxy war stage. It is a place where real people live, and any political framework, whether French, Russian, or homegrown, that treats the region as a chessboard and its people as incidental is destined to fail. East Africa, plane crash in South Sudan and floods in Nairobi. In East Africa, a Cessna 208 caravan operated by CityLink Aviation crashed on April 28th, approximately 20 kilometers southwest of Juba, South Sudan's capital. There were 15 people on board, the pilot and 14 passengers, including 13 South Sudanese and 2 Kenyans. Air traffic control lost contact with the aircraft 30 minutes after it departed Yei, heading toward Juba. Authorities have launched an investigation. The initial reports cite poor weather and low visibility as possible causes. This crash must be understood in context. South Sudan has one of the most dangerous aviation environments on the continent. More than 55 planes crashed in the country in the decade following its independence in 2011. The road network remains dangerously underdeveloped. Aviation is not a luxury in South Sudan. It is often the only means of transport between communities. When planes fall out of the sky, they take with them people for whom there was no other way to get home. Also in East Africa this week, Emergency teams were deployed in Nairobi and Moyale, Kenya, after flash floods hit multiple areas of the capital and the border town with Ethiopia. The flooding follows the seasonal long rains, but the intensity reflects a pattern that climate scientists have consistently warned about: East Africa's rainfall becoming more extreme, less predictable, and more deadly in a warming world. East/Central Africa. DRC becomes Sub-Saharan Africa's fifth largest economy. A significant economic milestone this week. The Democratic Republic of Congo is projected to reach a nominal GDP of approximately $123 billion in 2026, overtaking Ethiopia at $122 billion to become Sub-Saharan Africa's fifth largest economy, behind South Africa, Nigeria, Angola, and Kenya. The IMF's Regional Economic Outlook for Sub-Saharan Africa revised the DRC's growth rate upward to 5.9% for 2026, driven by strong performance in cobalt, copper, and other critical minerals, alongside infrastructure investments and recovering commodity prices. In the same week, the DRC launched a new $100 million state-backed security force, the Mining Guard, to protect strategic mineral sites from illegal mining, artisanal conflicts, and smuggling. The unit is backed by US and UAE support and aims to boost investor confidence as the country seeks stronger control over its critical minerals supply chain amid soaring global EV demand. A Southern Africa plus continental, May Day and the workers' message. On May 1st, International Workers' Day, African trade union federations from Lagos to Lusaka delivered a message to their governments that cut through the noise of the week's geopolitics. The headline from All Africa: African workers decrying rising inequality, vanishing billions, and elite control. Union leaders in multiple countries pointed to the same reality: wages are not keeping pace with inflation. The cost of living shock from the Middle East conflict is falling hardest on working people, and structural reform programs imposed by international lenders are protecting government finances while squeezing households. In Malawi, unions demanded salary hikes for public servants and condemned what they called a token increase. In Mozambique, the minimum wage received a small bump, but health workers and government employees received nothing. In Zimbabwe, unions published an extensive analysis titled Loyalty for Sale, documenting how patronage networks have captured the state and corrupted the relationship between government and citizen. Also in Southern Africa, South Africa handed back stolen Zimbabwean artifacts and human remains this week, a restitution moment that received less coverage than it deserved. And Mozambique signed a new agreement with the United States valued at over $500 million, the details of which and the conditions attached will be worth watching closely. This week in Africa gave us the fall of Kidal and the limits of Russia's Sahel bet. It gave us the most ambitious Pan-African capital markets moment in history. It gave us the sound of working people, continent-wide, refusing to be silent about inequality. And it gave us the quieter stories: a plane in the sky over South Sudan, flash floods in Nairobi, a country's artifacts coming home. The Africa story is never one thing. It is all of this, simultaneously: catastrophe and ambition, grief and growth, setback and resilience. Understanding Africa means holding all of it at once. This has been This Week in Africa, April 28th to May 1st, 2026. We'll be back next Friday.